Good morning, everyone. I'm Felicia Milelli, Board Chair and Co-founder of New Jersey Public Health Innovation Political Action Committee. And today I'm joined by Board Director and Co-founder Marin Jalinos. Hello, Marin.
Hi, Felicia.
We are coming to you once again from our PAC Chat StreamYard studio to bring to you District 3 Senate candidate, Assemblywoman Beth Sawyer. If this is your first time today tuning in with us at the PAC Chat, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. The PAC Chat is NJPHIPAC's online platform to get up close and personal with New Jersey-centric legislators, candidates, and influencers with an emphasis on issues pertaining to health freedom, informed consent, and parental rights. Okay, so we're going to get started with some background on District 3 and why we're here today. The District 3 Senate seat is currently held by Senator Ed Durr. As you may recall, Senator Durr, along with his running mates, Assemblywoman Beth Sawyer, who will be on to speak with us in a few minutes, and Assemblywoman Beth Ann McCarthy, knocked out Senator Steve Sweeney in 2021. General election flipped the district from District 3 from Democratic to Republican. And during the Battle of Trenton, which holds a special place in the heart for many of us, when they were trying to remove the religious exemption bill, and Steve Sweeney was the Senate president at the time, he was our biggest nemesis, really, in the state. As you may remember, he removed a number of supportive legislators from the Health Committee on that day and placed himself and others on the committee for that one day so that he would have enough votes to advance the exemption bill into the full Senate. He also posted the bill on the full Senate agenda not once, but twice, and it drew thousands to the State House in opposition. In District 3 primary currently, we are very grateful to have two candidates who have shown their unwavering support for health freedom. So this primary election, Assemblywoman Sawyer is challenging incumbent Ed Durr for the District 3 Senate seat. Since they are both outspoken and strong supporters of our issue, the PAC board has decided to invite both Senator Durr and Assemblywoman Sawyer to join us on their very own PAC Chat to discuss their candidacies and legislative priorities relating to health freedom and parental rights. So today we're going to bring on Assemblywoman Sawyer. And so without further ado, let's bring on Assemblywoman and Senate candidate Beth Sawyer to our StreamYard studio. Welcome, Assemblywoman Sawyer.
Good morning, ladies. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We're grateful to have you and grateful for all the work you have done and looking forward to spending this time hearing more about what your plans are for looking into the future. So I'm going to pass that along to Marin, and she will start off with some questions for you.
Thanks, Felicia. Thank you so much for being here with us, Assemblywoman. Like Felicia said, we have two very qualified candidates. Both you and Senator Durr were both endorsed by the PAC in 2021. And we're so happy to have you on so that you can discuss your platform and your candidacy. So I'd like to just start by asking you to share with us, why are you running in this primary election?
Well, one of the reasons that I'm running is I feel like I will be much more effective as a senator than my opponent. I think that I will be able to get a lot more bills advanced that will protect our medical freedom. Currently, our current senator is blocked at the Senate, and I feel that that doesn't help my district, nor does it help the entire state in serious issues like what we have at hand. And I feel like I've developed relationships on both sides of the aisle where people respect me and they're willing to listen to me. And when it comes time to situations where we just went through with COVID and these mandates that were shoved down all of our throats, that I can stand up and I'm going to be a strong voice for parents and for children and for our seniors, and that people are going to actually listen. So it wasn't a very difficult decision. It's something that I thought about for pretty much since the second day I got elected. And I'm going to stay true to my values and keep my integrity come election day on Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the primary election is coming up. Just as a reminder for everybody, it's coming up quickly on Tuesday. So it's really important that you hear from your candidates and get out to vote for sure. You mentioned about having some medical freedom bills or some bills that you'd like to see advanced. You have a number of bills that you sponsor and co-sponsor with regard to our issue, medical freedom, parental rights. Can you share maybe a couple of them with us that are really important to you and why you decided to sponsor those?
Sure. So my first day in session, live session, because remember when we got sworn in, it was in the middle of COVID where we had vaccination mandates, masking mandates at the State House. And when I got there, my very first day, leadership had asked me to post my bill to make Bill 82585 the bill of the day. Me being a freshman legislator, I didn't quite know what that entailed, but it was a great experience. So what happened was I was able to ask for my bill to be posted that day because of the urgency. That was the day that the governor had called for termination of all of the corrections officers, first responders, and healthcare workers that had failed to get the vaccination. I took that very seriously. I mean, you look at what happened during COVID when nurses and first responders, doctors, everybody was showing up to work, not knowing if they were going to live or die, not knowing if they were going to bring this virus home to their families, and not knowing if they were going to visit their loved ones and give it to them and have the risk of dying. So to take them from being heroes and trying to make them be zeros and fire them because they were being forced to get the vaccination and have to choose between feeding their families, keeping a job, or having the medical freedom to make that decision for their own. They didn't have it that entire time. So why should they be forced to get it now? They were able to mask themselves and sanitize and keep healthy. So, when you look at that and you say, well, these men and women were able to do that during that time. Why are we treating them this way? Because there's a vaccination that came out that didn't have any time to see what the ramifications were going to be from that vaccination. And we see that now. We see people are dropping dead of heart attacks, young men and women that are athletes. There's a lot of people that I know that are in their 40s and 50s have passed away of heart attacks, and they've all been vaccinated. I took that very seriously. My brother's a corrections officer. And you looked at the time where the governor was letting out over 7,000 prisoners at the time. He wasn't asking them for their vaccination card. He wasn't forcing them to get the jab on their way out, but you were going to force corrections workers to get that jab to be able to keep their jobs. So I stood up on the State House floor and spoke about my bill. I asked for all of our colleagues to put politics aside and do what was right, which would to protect these men and women that have protected us. And unfortunately, the minority leader stood up to have it tabled, and the Dems did not let it get voted on that day. But I will tell you what happened from that moment was it put pressure on the governor. It brought embarrassment that a freshman legislator saw the need for this bill to protect these men and women, that he actually gave a 90-day extension. And I'm very proud that that came from my ability to get up and speak my first day there. And I'm going to continue to fight for these. I put up a bill that would stop the masking of our children. I can't even imagine that this governor was forcing masks on a small baby, on an infant, any of our children. That to me is inhumane. We're all mothers here, right? We'll do anything for our children. And to have that mask being placed on our children, we know what the effects of masking our children brought, right? It definitely did not help them in their learning abilities. And I also thought about the kids that had any type of speech impediments, any type of learning disabilities. Their teachers had their face masks. How were they able to learn from that? So we often talk about the 2 years of lost learning and the effects, and that's something that we really need to address in Trenton. I've been pushing for tutors to be put into the schools, the grants to be given to the schools to make sure that we get our children caught up. They deserve to be caught up. The virtual learning, I think, was a complete flop, and we're seeing what's happening. Not only did it have educational effects, but it's had mental effects on our children. isolating them from their friends, from their families. Their grandparents have, passed away and they couldn't even get in to say goodbye or to be able to visit them. That has a lot of negative impacts on a small child. They don't understand what's going on. So it was important for me to make sure that I proposed these bills. But the one that was the most important to me is I have a friend, and her name's Diana. So I call it the Diana bill. She's a nurse. She's a physician's assistant. She got the vaccination before she got pregnant. And then she ended up getting pregnant. And they were forcing the vaccination on her while she was pregnant. I thought that was insane. I'm trying to protect the children that women want, right? I'm trying to protect the unborn. And so I proposed a bill that you could not force this vaccination on any pregnant woman. And I believe that a woman has a right to protect her child. I mean, again, nobody knew what the side effects of this vaccination was going to be. So why would we ever try to force that on a pregnant mother that, was looking, we always think about when we're pregnant, that baby growing in our bellies, that everything is happening the right way, that God is keeping our child safe, that we have a healthy delivery, that the baby's safe and healthy, and that the mother is safe and healthy. So to think about that they were imposing that vaccination was mind-blowing to me. So I proposed these bills, and I actually had talked to Senator Michael Testa about picking them up on the Senate side, because Michael has been a strong advocate for medical freedom, and he's been a great mentor at the State House. So I went to him and talked to him about picking up the bills. Unfortunately, he didn't grab them right away, and my opponent picked them up without asking me if it was okay for him to do that, because I already knew going in that they were going to give him a hard time because of him taking out the Senate president. And to me, it's don't be selfish. Do what's best for the people. So unfortunately, he grabbed those bills instead of letting Michael have them, and they didn't make very much movement. They've been blocked on both sides, and I'm very disappointed in that. But I want anybody listening to know that me being a single mom, I raised my kids since they were 1 and 2. I would do anything for my kids, as I know both of you would too. I mean, it's been great. Felicia, getting to know you has been an honor and a privilege. You're always out there. You've been a strong advocate. Marin, you're always on these calls. And I thank God for women like you. Well, and I know there's a gentleman on your board too, but thank you for what you do, because by what you're doing, it's an inspiration to legislators. And it also helps us keep the thumb on the pulse of what's happening, right? You guys are speaking very loudly, and it really encourages us to step up and do, like, I'm your voice. So whatever it is that you want me to get to Trenton, I'm going to get to Trenton. And I'm very grateful that you have formulated this PAC, and you're very visual. You're at all the events that I'm at. And I want to thank you for that, because I know it takes a lot of time and effort to be there and get your voice out.
Thank you so much. That's really humbling. We couldn't even do what we do without legislators like you. And it must have taken a lot of courage to come out so early and really push back to what the governor was doing, and to stand up for mothers, pregnant mothers, the children with the masking. I agree with you, to put masks on 2-year-olds. It was really sad. And we're still seeing all of the ramifications of what the governor did in this state. And we really appreciate what you have done and your courage in putting these bills forward. And we look forward to seeing more of that. So thank you so much for sharing all that. How would winning the election in the Senate enhance your ability to lead on the issues of medical freedom? You discussed it a bit, but how would being in the Senate really take that to the next level for you?
Well, it's also, the biggest thing is having another woman in the Senate, right? Having a mother in the Senate that is able to bring a different perspective. I think that my caucus, I'll talk about, it was a bunch of men. There was very few women elected. And with my election, a lot of women had come to the caucus. And there's new energy there. They're very happy to see us there. And when we talk about different bills, the men listen. And it's bringing a different perspective where they go, you know what? You're right. So on some bills where they would have voted no, they voted yes, because we talk about how this helps so many different people. And it's usually a woman based bill that we have these conversations on, and leadership is very happy to have me there. It was a hard decision to leave the assembly, because I have a great relationship with every single one of my colleagues in that caucus room. I've learned a lot from them, and I think they've learned from me, and they listen to me. And I think that's important, that we listen to one another and we listen to understand. We don't listen to respond. So I think taking that ability to the Senate side as a woman and being able to sit in a room in the upper house, I think that I'll be a lot more effective there, because I already have relationships with a lot of the senators, and I will continue to develop relationships with more, and being able to get our district unblocked. And it's a 4-year term. So when you have 4 years to really focus on legislation and be able to cultivate those relationships, especially at budget time. We're in budget session right now. I'll have a seat at the table. And I know that I will continue to work hard to bring money to South Jersey, to my district, and continue to bring awareness of what's going on in Trenton. I'm very transparent. I talk about all what's going on there. I read the bills. Every time I get that bill package, I'm up usually till 1 or 2 in the morning. I always say it's like being back in college, but I take those bills very seriously. And what that helps me do is when I'm out and I'm at events and somebody has an issue, I can say, by the way, this bill just passed through the assembly. It's a great bill. It's going to help you. Or I try to keep myself updated on the grants that are available for different nonprofits or counties and municipalities to be able to help bring the money to my district. Being a senator it's a tough job, and being an assembly member is a tough job, but it's a job that I asked for. I was a write-in during the 2021 election. Unfortunately, my chairwoman had chosen somebody that didn't live in the district, so they were unable to get on the ballot. So we had to do a grassroots effort to get Beth Sawyer on the ballot for the general election. That took a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of getting out there for people to know that they had to write my name in. And we were successful with that. And then when I got the general nomination, I was looking at what was going on in our state and our country, and it made me sick. My kids are 27 and 29. I do not have grandchildren yet, but I was thinking about what all the mothers, all the parents were going through at that time with the masking of their kids, people having to give up their jobs to stay home and homeschool their kids. You have to think and you really have to be empathetic to the situation going, these people were scared. I mean, I was scared, trying to keep food on the table, keep the roof over your head. Yes, the governor called for you didn't have to pay your mortgage or pay your rent, but it was just living in that fear of what was COVID. Was it really going to have the effects they said it was going to have? And then when the very first person that got COVID that was very close to me, and she was in the hospital for months. Thank God she's still alive today. It was very real for me, because there was a lot of people around me that got it, that some passed away. Some were able to get through and they were on ventilators and they were able to come out of the hospital and they're still alive today. And then I got COVID and it was a struggle. I got severely dehydrated. I had a severe sore throat. And I was sick for 2 weeks right before I got sworn in. So I actually went through the experience of having COVID. I did not get vaccinated. I was not going to get vaccinated. I believe that our body is meant to heal itself, and that's my choice. People go around and they say, my body, my choice. Well, it was my body and my choice. And I was very careful. I always wash my hands, and I've been raised that way from day one. My mother would always make us wash our hands, especially before you ate or touched something. So, being a senator, I think I'm going to bring a strong voice for my district, and a voice that is going to be respected, and a voice that's going to be heard, and a voice that's going to rally together when we need to be strong and fight against a governor that used his executive order power and he abused it. You look at what happened in Florida and you look what happened in New Jersey. I mean, there's no comparison. And you look at Florida, you go, okay, well, that's a high population of seniors. Look at their senior deaths compared to our senior deaths. What happened in those nursing homes and those veteran homes, it's just heartbreaking. And, unfortunately, my parents both passed away right before COVID. My mom passed in 2017 and my dad passed shortly after in January 2019. But I think to myself, how would I have handled that if my mother or father was in a nursing home and I knew they were sick and they could die and I couldn't get in that nursing home to see my mom and dad? It would have ruined my world. I was so close to my parents. So I start thinking about all of the people out there that lost their loved ones and weren't able to get in and say goodbye, not be able to touch them and let them know that they cared. The isolation that our seniors went through. And then you look at the isolation that our children went through. This is something that I never want to see happen again in this state or anywhere. So I think that we lesson learn that we have to stand up and be loud. I'm very happy that Governor DeSantis took a stance and he kept his state open. And we look at the effects of keeping a state open, right? He has a strong economy down there. The deaths were way lower than what we had in New Jersey. And, you know, people are moving to Florida every day because they want to be in a free state. They want to be in a red state because now we know the effects of what can happen when a governor abuses executive orders. I mean, we lived it. And, you know, I watched businesses go out of business. 1 out of 3 went out of business. I had just opened up my real estate company in December of 2019, and I got shut down March of 2020. I signed a lease. I was paying almost $8,000 a month to keep, you know, the doors open, but the doors were open. I couldn't let anybody in. I was not allowed to let people in my office for almost a year. And then when I did for closings, it was only one person could come in at a time. The restrictions were just unbelievable. And I took on a big office space thinking I was going to grow my business, thinking that I was going to bring in a big team. And here I couldn't even bring in the team that I had. So that put a lot of pressure on me, not only financially, but emotionally. You're thinking that, you know, you're doing the American dream, you're opening up your own business, you're becoming an entrepreneur, and you're so excited. And then 3 months later, it all gets taken away from you. So this was something that happened very quickly. It literally was almost overnight where the president announced on March 16th, which was my birthday, that he was shutting down the country for 2 weeks. That was the longest 2 weeks of my life. And it was a very stressful 2 weeks because, like I said, we didn't know if we were going to live and die. And it was, you know, hearing everything, the possibilities, watching what was being said on TV, and then having to explain. My son's in California, so he's across the country. I can't get to him. My daughter was here with me in New Jersey, and thinking about how do I keep them emotionally okay, right? How do I keep them saying, we're going to be safe, we're going to be okay, the world's going to be okay, the state's going to be okay? It was a lot. And thank God I have a really close relationship with both of my kids, and we were able to get through it. I was able to then finally bring my son home for the summer. His boss let him come here, and he was able to work from here for the summer. But when he went back to California, he was forced to get the vaccination. He had no choice but to get it. And that was very upsetting to me because, you know, he's 27 years old. Nobody knew what the effects were going to be. So I was very upset about that. I am so sorry. I got to grab my charger because this says it's going to go dead. Give me 1 second.
Yes, no worries. No worries. Thank you all for being here. And just a reminder that the primary is coming up on Tuesday, June 6th. Early voting has already started. So we have some links on our Facebook page and Instagram regarding voting. You can find your polling place. You can look for the times and look up your candidates. Definitely make sure you get to the polls, no matter what district you're in. We're here today talking to Assemblywoman Beth Sawyer, who's running for Senate in District 3. But of course, no matter what district you're in, find out who your candidates are. If you're registered as a Republican, you're voting just in the Republican columns. If you're unaffiliated, you can choose on the day you go to the polls if you're going to vote in the Republican or Democrat, which line you're going to vote in. Okay, so thank you so much for all of that. I'm glad you got all plugged in and ready to go. We don't want to lose you midstream here. Okay,
No.
so, you know, you mentioned a little bit about Murphy and the abuse of powers. And obviously COVID was such an imprint on all of our lives, and things were happening very quickly. And there wasn't a lot of time to even push back. He was rolling in all of these emergency orders, and he had all of these emergency powers. And we're still trying to unravel a lot of that, that damage that he did. But recently, we've actually seen another instance where the New Jersey Department of Health sent out proposed revisions to rules regarding immunizations, childhood immunizations, among other things, and sent it out to stakeholders for feedback. And it looks like the rules that are currently in place are going to expire, I believe, in February of next year. So they have this time where they're looking to change the rules regarding immunizations. And one of the proposals would essentially add the COVID vaccine and the flu vaccine, and I believe, HPV vaccine also. That would automatically include those on the mandated list of vaccines for children of all ages to attend school. And that really would circumvent the whole legislative process, which we've talked so much about today, how important it is for our legislators, our representatives, to be able to be in Trenton representing the issues of the people that they represent. But this would completely circumvent that process. So I'm just curious, what your thoughts are. I have an idea of what your thoughts might be, but please share with us how you feel about the Department of Health coming in and possibly changing rules without the legislative process being involved.
I think that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. I look what's happening in Rutgers. I've been very vocal about going against these schools that are mandating, they're state-funded schools that are mandating these vaccinations for these kids to attend schools. Again, my body, my choice. And they are so young. If you look at the statistics of a child getting COVID and surviving, they're very strong. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are of actually how many younger kids passed away, but forcing these vaccinations on these children that haven't had a chance to be adults, haven't had a chance to, have babies and start families, we should be taking this very seriously. So before I almost went dead here, I was talking to you about my son living in California. When he went back, my son was forced to get the vaccination. He said, "Mom, they are ruining my life. I can't even sit outside at a restaurant on a patio without showing a vaccination card." And, and then he ended up having to get the second one. I worry about him every day. He's an athlete, and when he's out, he runs a lot. I really worry about him and what the side effects can be from getting that shot. I want to talk about the HPV shot. I was working outside the country, and my ex-husband took my daughter to get that shot. And I can tell you, I was very upset with him. And she's had all sorts of medical issues ever since she got that, throughout her adulthood. And I strongly believe that it's due to her getting that shot. So I don't think that these should be part of the vaccinations for schools. My son never had a flu shot until he went to Valley Forge Military Academy, and he was pretty much forced to get it there because they had kids coming from all over the world to start school there. I've never had the flu shot. I've had the flu one time in my life. I got through it. My kids have not had the flu. So I just think that, when you look at why are people pushing? Let's get to the root of the problem, or let's talk about the elephant in the room. It's pharmaceutical companies are making so much money off of this stuff. Literally 3 days ago, I get a FedEx package or UPS package on my front porch. I open it up. It's 2 COVID test kits. I'm like, why are they still sending this stuff out? I was shocked. I don't know who sent them to me. Every now and then, randomly, somebody will send me 8. One time I got 20 of them in 2 different packages. And you look and say, well, they probably have them sitting in a warehouse. So somebody's paying, the state's probably paying to have them shipped out. And, I try to eat healthy, exercise, and take vitamins to stay fit and so that I don't get sick. What we really need to be focusing on is mental health awareness in this state and in this country, and put the money there and allow parents to be parents. I mean, we didn't have the government there when we were pregnant, carrying these babies in our bellies for 9 months. Why did they feel that they have the control to say what we do with our children once we give birth to them? And this stems into a lot of things with the crazy sex ed agenda that they're trying to propose to our schools. And then you look at the vaccinations and you put it all together and you go, so you look at the big picture and said, this is such a leftist, progressive movement, right? And it encompasses so much more. It's not just about the medical freedom. It's just not about the sex ed, cringy curriculum. It's when you look at everything as a big picture, I want to say, you got to get out and vote. If you want to see change happen in the state of New Jersey, your vote really does matter. we have to flip this state red, because what happened, the more Republicans that we get in the legislature, I strongly believe that we will be able to get rid of a lot of these bills being that have passed, or we will be able to block some of them that have been proposed and be able to keep our medical freedom. I want to bring up what you said about the former Senate president, what he was able to do. That's why he got voted out. This wasn't a vote for Ed Durr, Beth Sawyer, Beth Ann McCarthy Patrick. This was a vote against Murphy and Sweeney. People were angry at exactly what you said in the beginning of what these legislators were able to do. And they were Democratic legislators. And I know in my district, we were an environmental win. And I will own that, 100%. People came out and they wanted Murphy gone from my district. They wanted Sweeney gone. That's why it was the biggest upset. Sweeney never saw it coming. I don't know how he didn't see it coming, because now looking back in hindsight, I say, how did you not see it coming? During the election, Steve Sweeney only chose to attack me. He came up with a lovely commercial with my private Facebook photos, and I couldn't walk into a restaurant without seeing a commercial bashing me. He was getting polls that said that I was up 8 points in the polls. So if he would have lost one seat, he knew he wouldn't be Senate president. So he put his focus on me instead of putting the focus on all three of us. My opponent's name was never mentioned during the election. People didn't even know who he was. So it's not like they came out and said, these are the three best candidates I've ever seen, and we want to get them elected. People went to the polls in 2021 angry. They were angry that their kids were being masked. They were angry that these vaccination mandates were being proposed. They were angry that they lost their jobs and then they couldn't get their unemployment. They were angry that they had to give up their job to stay at home and homeschool their children. I mean, I think you think about it, most families in New Jersey, especially middle-class households, are double family incomes. So now you got to give up one income because mom or dad has to stay home and make sure that curriculum gets done with these little kids and even juniors and seniors. That's just unbelievable to me. And I think about the financial stress that put on families, which then can bleed out to other things. It can lead to, arguing in the household. It could lead to divorce, all these things where families were used to a routine where the kids got up, they went to school, the parents went to work, they'd come together at night for dinner and they'd do their homework, they'd spend time on the weekends, had summers off. To now, everybody was forced under one roof, losing income and having to homeschool their kids. So I always, put myself in that situation and say, what would I have done? Especially as a single mom. I don't know what I would have done because my parents live 6 hours away. And I'm the sole provider for my children. Like, what would I have done if the school was basically saying I had to sit there with my small children on a computer to make sure they were doing their homework? It's mind blowing to me. So my heart goes out to all the parents that went through this. And then, like I said, being a business owner, I went through it firsthand. So I did not take a PPP loan at either round that they put out. And, looking back in hindsight, I probably should have taken them. It would have helped my business. Since I've opened, I've been forced to downsize. So I switched offices with somebody who was growing his team. And now I have just me, my daughter, and one other agent, which has worked out for me being a legislator. But going through that whole process, I mean, I lived it. So I can sit here and talk about it in detail because I lived it. Yeah. And I think that's really what makes me effective in Trenton is, I'm a real person. I've been divorced since my kids were 1 and 2. I never got child support. Everything I have earned on my own, and I've worked hard to get it. I was raised in a blue collar family. My dad was part of the Bricklayers Union and the Carpenters Union. My mom worked for Blair Process Corporation. I'm the baby of 4. They worked overtime all the time to make sure they kept food on the table and a roof over my head. I mean, I often laugh. My sister would say, we were poor. I'm like, no, we weren't. She's like, yes, you were. Your parents just didn't let you know. And they did a good job of, making us feel safe. And it was because they always provided for us. And looking back, I know it was a real struggle. And you're talking about in the 70s and 80s where the economy wasn't so great and inflation was high and interest rates were high. And I'm very grateful that my parents are the reason why I have the work ethic that I do, because I did watch them work so hard and they made us work so hard right out of the gate. We were our own housekeepers, dishwashers, landscapers. We did it all. And that's, given me a wealth of education in many different areas in life. And it's helped me be successful.
Well, You certainly have had, it shows, you certainly have had, you know, you said it all. You hit so many chords for me, seriously, with the relating to parental rights, and just for one thing, you said that they delivered the testing kits to your house, and where's the vitamin C? Where's the step-by-step instructions to go outside and get sunlight? I question that also. It's too much, and it's gone too far, and we thank you for standing up and having you in your seat. And I'm just, curious now, what are you looking forward to in 2024? Should you win that Senate seat? What are your priorities moving forward?
So big priorities, again, is the medical freedom, our parental rights. District specific is, getting broadband to Salem County and Gloucester County and making it affordable, getting as many households as we can with the capability of hooking up to broadband. God forbid this ever happens again. Also, too, focusing on our seniors and our veterans. When we went through COVID, all of these agencies were shut down, so they were forcing people to go online. And I'm saying to myself, go online. Our senior community, most of them don't have computers, right? So think about that. Most of them don't have computers, or if they do, they really don't know how to use them. People were afraid to go visit their parents because of COVID. And then anything they needed was like, oh, go online, fill out this application. Go online, go online, go online. No, we should have had mobile stations reaching out to our seniors, going to them, helping them get the relief that they needed. So I want to make the process easier. A lot of money now is going to come to districts through grants. So I've been talking to Salem County about getting grant writers for the county that the municipalities can also use to make it more cost effective so that we can start getting more money down to South Jersey. People laugh and say it's a fight between the North and the South. And I say, you're right. It's North Jersey versus South Jersey. And we have to stand together. We have to be South Jersey strong, working together to get the money to South Jersey, because it benefits all of us down here, every county, right? So working together is not a bad thing. Unfortunately, my opponent keeps putting out that I'm a lizard and a shill for the liberals and a snake and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, because I say I work with people that are Democrats, I think that's a good thing. That's the only way that we're going to start to get things done, is by working together. Now, we can agree to disagree. And there are times where I get up on the state house floor and strongly disagree with what they're trying to propose, because it's hurting my people. I represent the two poorest counties in the state. I represent Salem County and Cumberland County. They're the two poorest counties. So I always think about, how is this going to affect them? Gloucester County, I'm not saying that we don't have less fortunate people living in Gloucester, because we do. So when those bills come up, I always think of the consequences, good and bad. And that's because I do sit there and I read everything that comes across in my binder and make sure that I understand the entire bill. I'm not just reading the summary and going, okay, well, this sounds good. I actually read through that. And there's lots of times where I went into caucus and said, you guys are voting no on this bill, right? And they're like, oh, no, I'm voting yes. And I said, well, here, go to paragraph 3, look at this. And they went, oh, I didn't see that. And that caucus allows us the opportunity to have that discussion and say, this is a bad bill. Or guys, no, this really is a good bill, because this is what it's going to do, not just for the state, but it's specifically going to help my counties. And here's why. And we're able to have that discussion where a lot of times they will agree with me where they weren't, that, they were voting the opposite before we were able to have that conversation. So, I'm excited. I'm excited for Tuesday. I think the outcome is going to be in my favor. I think that I have worked extremely hard from the minute that I got sworn in. I have been out every single day. I try not to miss events. And I think that resonates with the voters, where, I just went to a Salem County Veterans Memorial Service on Memorial Day, and I was the only legislator from my district that was there for the entire county. And people were looking at me going, why aren't they here? And I said, that seems to be the question when I show up to 90% of my things, and my past running mates just aren't there. And again, I asked for the job. I was a write-in. I wanted this job. and I love this job, and I'm going to work very hard, and I'm going to continue to put my head down. I don't need to be in the limelight for people to know that I'm doing the work. They know I'm doing the work in Trenton. They know I'm doing the work in the district because they see me out there every day, making sure that I have my thumb on the pulse of what's going on in my district and in the state. And, I'm proud of that. Win or lose, I know I've done a great job. I know I've given it my all. And I think that, my kids, the number one most important thing is my kids are super, super proud of me. And that means everything to me. They've been extremely supportive throughout this whole process. My son, he teases me, he's like, Mom, you should run for president. And I laugh and say, never. But it's great to see my kids being so involved and very proud of their mom. And I know I'm inspiring them. And then their friends, them being 27 and 29, I'm very close to their friends because being the single mom, I spent a lot of time with both of their friends growing up. So they're always sending me very encouraging messages, and they've been supportive. So, Tuesday is going to be a great day for me. If I win, it's going to be amazing. I'll go on to do great things in the Senate. And if by chance I don't win, I have an incredible life that I've been able to accomplish many great things, and I'll continue to do that.
Well, that's an excellent outlook, and you keep your head in that direction and keep moving forward. And we are so fortunate to have had you and this time. And, I think it was mentioned before that you were previously endorsed in 2021 by NJPHIPAC. And as was Senator Durr and Beth Ann McCarthy. You said something before just about how everyone's lives have been stripped away from COVID and everything that happened with that and all of the extremism that's going on. And I often make a joke that right before 2019, that's when I sort of woke up with the religious exemption. I was working and taking care of the family and very busy still, but I had this course to make pumpernickel bread and sourdough bread. And it was very fancy, and you put the lines in it. And I said, I can't wait to get back to the time where I could get back to making that sourdough bread, because it's just we're on the fight. We're in the defensive, and it's not time yet. It's not time to give up. So we just need everybody to get out to vote, because we need to get the state back on track and be able to protect our children. So, we thank you for being that voice during these past 2 years for those issues. And one last question that we have for you is, do you think that to that point that New Jersey could ever become a beacon of health freedom rather than always being on this defensive?
Yes. And that's why I say that your vote does matter. If we flip the state, we will become the beacon of hope. I'm on the Seniors and Aging Committee, and I respect the women that are on there with me. And there's one Assemblywoman on there. But me having the business background, I often have to remind them that some of the bills they're trying to pass, they're going to put assisted living facilities out of business. And we're already struggling to find beds for our seniors and our disabled citizens. So, it's again, talking the talk, but walking the walk. And I can speak because I've had so many experiences in life, good and bad. And being in those positions, I can put myself in other people's shoes and say, what would I want to happen if I was them? How would I want this to be approached? But having organizations like what you have, getting more of those types of organizations, or you guys growing your organization, that helps us at the state. I mean, you guys are at the forefront of this. And when you're out there, and like I'll say it again, you are very loud about what you're about. And I respect that. You're not backing down. You are showing the governor, like, hey, we're here. We're fighting for our kids. We're fighting for our families, and we are not going anywhere. And we're just going to keep growing. And I think that makes a big difference, right? When you have those rallies at the State House, I love it, because you were there full force, and you were letting all the legislators know. You're reminding them, hey, we're watching you. We are going to make sure that you stay on track and do the right thing. And I enjoy when you're up there, and I like coming out and listening to what you have to say. And it's important that you guys continue to be a big voice so that we can hear you. And we do talk about it when we are in our caucus, and we talk about it on the State House floor. We can't let one person make the decision for all of us. I mean, what I saw with those executive orders was mind blowing, and nobody should have that much power, right? And look at the long-term negative effects that this has had on our state, on our families, on our bank accounts. Affordability is the number one, one of the number one problems in the state. I'm helping more seniors move out of the state of New Jersey every day because they just simply can't afford to live here. So that means they don't get to watch their grandchildren grow up. They don't have their kids there that they can be with them and create more memories. God forbid they get sick and they're now out of state and they don't have their children to be able to help them. This is a serious problem. And this is something that we need to really focus on this. Now we're in our budget session right now, and I can tell you it's going to be ridiculous. I mean, the budget is 53% higher than what Christie's was. These are astounding numbers. And then when all this COVID money finally goes away, or this $10 billion surplus the governor is sitting on finally goes away, where are we getting the money to continue to spend the way we are spending, right? We need to elect more fiscally conservative people that will start to look at that budget and say, hey, here's where we can cut things. They just passed last year, they gave away $45 million for electric buses. This was 3 days after those poor children were murdered in Texas. I said, take the 45 million and give it to the schools for mental health, right? Start getting more people into mental health fields. Start focusing on those programs in colleges or vocational schools so that we can get people the help that they need. So many people are still suffering from the effects of COVID and being isolated for 2 years. I see kids that I knew when they were 13 and now I see them, they're not the same kid. And when I talked to the parents, they said that isolating their children really has had a negative impact on them and the family. And I think that we need to really start taking money and putting it into the places where we know it's going to have the greatest effect. And what greater effect than putting it into human beings, into our kids and us parents and our seniors and getting us back on the right track. And I think it will help everyone overall.
Yeah. Before I pass, Marin, I just wanted to touch on that point that this and what you brought up and the potential that we have to in this state right now as a community to flip seats in the general election to senators and assembly people who will be voting against mandates and for our issue for protecting health freedom and parental rights. There is some real potential to gain those seats. So please stay connected to NJPHIPAC for that news, for our voters guide, and stay tuned for very important announcements shortly that we'll be releasing regarding an event that we're having in September. We're excited to put some drip into that, where you'll have an opportunity to meet your legislator and have some very special keynote speakers. So stay tuned for that. Marin?
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for coming on and talking about your campaign, and you're very knowledgeable. You've really lived it with regard to health freedom and parental rights. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. So we appreciate you sharing all of that with us, because I do think people are angry and people have had enough, and we want to be able to parent our children the way we want to parent, and you get that. So we appreciate that and appreciate your transparency. And we wish you luck. And I just want to do one more plug for voting, because again, we have early voting that already started. It's from now until June 4th at select county polling locations. And then June 6th, which is the traditional voting day, municipal locations are going to be open. And that's really the last chance. That is the last chance for you to vote. So it's not just advantageous to vote in this primary. It's imperative that we vote in every election, because we need to maintain strong representation in Trenton on our issues, because our future depends on it, and our children's future even more so depends on it. So get to the polls. And again, thank you so much for coming on, Assemblywoman. And
yeah, thank you for being here with us today. We really appreciate the time, and we'll be watching what's going on. So
thank you, ladies. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and please keep fighting the fight. And when I win, I will continue to fight with you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Have a great day. Enjoy the door knocking.
Thanks.
Take care. Okay. Marin?
Yep.
Good.
I'm going to do our shameless plug.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so if you're still with us, and we appreciate you staying on with the Assemblywoman, but I'd be remiss if I didn't shamelessly plug our PAC. We really rely on contributions from individuals like you, our like-minded community. We're a grassroots organization. We are nonprofit. All the money that we raise goes right back into what we do, which is elevating, supporting legislators that are going to not only embrace our mission, but really put it into action with bills and sponsoring bills and supporting bills that are going to preserve our rights, our religious rights, our medical rights, our parenting rights, and also advance them, because we don't want to just stay where we are, be stagnant. We want to really advance those rights. And so if you are not already a contributor, we would encourage you to go onto our website. It's www.njphipac.org and click on the contribute or donate button and become a recurring contributor. We have a movement of thousands whose passion to preserve our rights can't be bought or contained. And in the eyes of our legislators, contributions to the PAC equal votes. And that's a currency that money can't buy. So every contribution, like I said, that we get, we put right back into supporting legislators who support our mission. So follow us on social media and don't forget to vote.
Thank you, Marin. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for future PAC chats, endorsements, and health freedom and parental right news here in New Jersey. Stay connected. Thank you and have a great day.